Welcome to part 2. For demonstration purposes, I'll be using a site that I created. As you can see here, got a nice background in the header, got a central window and a side menu. For your particular projects, you can have your menus on the top, side, bottom, left, right, wherever you want. You can have the actual page as a menu, navigating to where you want. It's up to you how you want to do it. This is just an example of how it can be done. As you can see here, I've got my selections on the side. Each one has a rollout. If you select a particular item, you have your buttons that come out, changes into your selection, and let's go to the other item. As an example, voila. Have a return button. Some items, as on the contact, covers the whole window, but there's always a return button. Some items, as you see, will take up the main window. Other items will take up a section of the window with their own separate scroller. Like I say, this is just an example of how it could be done. In the timeline for this particular one, I have on stage a single movie clip which has everything inside of it, which means I can put it anywhere, load it as a single item, or do what I want with it. In the timeline, you notice I have an action script on the top. I do this by default, and I stick a stop action on just in case there's something else that needs to be put there, or there's extra items in the timeline that need to be played. You go in, and you can see straight away I have a few other things here. I have my actions layer on the top, and I've separated my menus here. I've got my left menu set up here, header, right menu, and logo window. I also have them terminating at different areas. If I scrub this along, you can see each window changing in turn, as each one has its particular task. If I put it at this particular position, you can see there's nothing on stage because this one is a blank keyframe. The header follows through all the way across, so the header will remain visible at all times. I've got my left menu above the header menu for basics that this is a primary item and needs to be above everything else. Because of its position, it doesn't matter if it's above the header because nothing overlaps the header. When I come across, because the left menu is above everything else in the structure here, it's a layer above all the other layers, so you need to terminate that layer at a given point if you're wanting the layers underneath it to be visible past that layer. If, say, this window, which is my YouTube player window, if I go to the left menu setting and just add one frame, you can see now that with it overlapping, my menu is now on top of this window. So what we do is remove that frame, and it is where it's supposed to be again. In the menu setting here, all of these are single timeline, which means they stay constant throughout. The only ones that change is this one here, which is the main window. this is my main navigation line where I have all my things that I navigate to. The header, for obvious reasons, stays above, no need to be changing anything, and then I have my left menu. Let's take a look at the left menu. We go into the left menu. Straight away you can see I've got the basic setup here. I've got a background for the buttons, and I've got the buttons themselves. I go into the buttons and I have a navigation setup for my buttons. First thing you'll notice is I've got 3 sets of Actionscript layers. First one is a listener for the basic buttons on the top here. You can see my first set of buttons. The second set is my general navigation. When I click the buttons, each of these have got a stop and go function, which if I scrub across, you'll notice I have a time line set up here. In the third one, I have my return function, which is this big blue button. Basically, when I click on an item and I mouse over the blue area, it then retracts in. I then have separate layers for text and so on. If you notice here, I have a layer which is, if I put it about there, this layer is a mask layer. The reason being is that these items need to be on stage continuously, but you don't want to be seeing them continuously. So if I go there and I hide the main buttons and text, you can see I have the buttons underneath. And as I scroll across, you'll see they pop out. And if I scroll across again, they're all living here, but you cannot see them because they are underneath with the mask layer. If I turn the mask visible, this is the mask here, which means these items will not be visible until they are underneath the mask layer. Excuse me. Each particular button instance, as you can see here, I've created a tween so they move in and move back out. Simple tween action to the top and back to the bottom, and then on the return button function here I have my stop function, which will stop it at that particular frame. And then the button function will then continue to play it when it gets to here. This one has got action which will send it back to the beginning and stop. That's a basic way of putting up your buttons. Each button set, if you go into it, has got skins and so on, and then finally has their own individual actions. Every button will have that, and you have your own navigation for them. See you in part 3.